Yo, yo, what's up? What's up? I just cleaned my bike. So, we can go on with our lives. I just cleaned my bike because I need to put my bike outside and stuff and stuff and stuff. So, yeah. Sorry about the delay. Nobody's watching anyways. I'm planning on actually uploading a video someday, but yeah. Yo, my bike is pimping. I use my AliExpress tools now, and it's fucking good. It's fucking good. Anyways, I'm gonna work out now. Time to grind, I guess. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Wait, what am I doing again? I forgot. I'm gonna work out. I keep getting distracted. I'm so sorry about that. It's already 6. I don't have much time, but I'm gonna do my best. Anyways, everything's pretty much prepared here, so it's good to go. Just need to set up the timer. And I need to set up the output. Just pretty much in here. You know, you just bam, 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 like that. Let me just check if this works. Alright, it works. I might do some business stuff. Gonna use my earphones. Connected.
Can be your friends, and it can be a much quicker sell to get them on board as a sponsor. One of the best hacks to get a brand as a sponsor is to be personally really vested in that brand. So, for example, we recently, as you know, I mentioned it earlier, put a doorbell on the bottom of our staircase that people could press that doorbell, pitch their dream, and we would help them. We decided the best product for us to do that, the most economical product that worked on the internet, was Ring Doorbell, owned by Amazon. Now, we didn't ask Ring to sponsor us. We didn't ask Amazon to sponsor us. It was just the best product. We believed in the product and suited what we were trying to do. So we installed it and we marketed it. And of course, guess who's seen it? Ring and Amazon. So now, who are we now working with? Amazon. Now, of course, what I'm talking about here is just using the brand in your life, and therefore it being a natural fit for the brand to work with you. When I wear Whoop out on the street, it's natural I'm wearing it because I like the product, and then Whoop will see me with millions of views on my videos wearing a Whoop, and they will contact me. So I think that just leaning in to a brand relationship and not initially thinking about the money, back to some of the points I was making in some of the other areas earlier, delayed gratification in sponsorship can also be very powerful. Just work with brands that you love will always be easier than forcing a brand into your ecosystem, but also just doing stuff with that brand as part of your day-to-day business life can lead to sponsorship. How to build a brand. Now, this subject is complex and exciting. If you get it right, a lot of the things I've talked about earlier, like sales and marketing, will happen naturally, but it is complex. Now, there's lots of videos out there about what is a brand, so I'm not going to bore you with that. It's obvious. It's ultimately a statement about what you are doing. You want people to look at it and know. I love the images. I've seen many. You can take away the logo, you can take away everything, and you still know it's that brand. It's not about the actual logo, the design. Branding is about the purpose of the business, the essence of what you're doing. Nike is about supporting athletes. Apple is about supporting creativity. Ultimately, when you're coming to figure out your own brand, I would start with your personal brand because it's a really good way of figuring out how to build a brand. Why? You know you, right? If you're honest about yourself, you can make a brand persona. And you start with writing down your values. What do you care about? What are your non-negotiables? What will you say no to? What will you say yes to? Understanding your personality, understanding what it is you want to do, that's what your brand is about. That's who you are. Now, you will already have a personal brand, and anyone that doesn't want a personal brand, I'm sorry, you're gonna have one no matter what. People will talk about you when you're not in the room. You need to embrace personal branding. And by understanding how others perceive you, it can literally change the trajectory of your life. Now, I have some real gripes with personal brand, and it's not very scalable. Only in certain exceptions around people like Kardashians and so on, can you actually scale a personal brand. As someone that's built a personal brand, as someone that's got 4 million followers, that spent 4 years building a personal brand here in the UK, I can tell you it is sometimes a pain in the arse. I am responsible now, no matter what, to do videos like this and post up stuff even when I'm tired. Like now, I'm actually tired and I still have to do this video because if I don't do it, you probably won't take it seriously. I can give this knowledge to my colleague and give it to you and you probably wouldn't listen. So you need to hear it from someone that's been there and done it, like me. And I understand that. And I actually do love doing these videos and helping you, but I'm just trying to highlight the personal brand side is dangerous if that's all you build. You have to take personal brand seriously. You have to identify what your personal brand is. And by the way, I know people that have made their personal brand not being on social media. Their personal brand is they don't get back to you in email. That's actually sometimes what makes them unique. That's their personal brand. I don't reply to DMs. I want to make videos like this that bring you value. I want to do lives. That means I interact in the real world with real people. I have my rules, I have my values. I'm dyslexic, so I don't like reading DMs, but having those rules and having that discipline will ultimately help you define what people say about you instead of people saying it without you having defined it. But brand values of your own can teach you how you need to do exactly the same for your company name. So let's take my brand, HelpBank. Right, HelpBank has a lot of the traits that I personally value: honesty, openness, authenticity, value. These are all words in my personal brand persona that I have translated into my company persona. However, HelpBank's long-term future also involves helping people with finance. Finance is not a word I use on my personal brand, and also supporting people to get the funding they need is something I have personally done many, many times, but as an organization, as a platform, it's going to be a much more serious thing for HelpBank. So when the branding was designed, we said it has to look a little bit more serious than the Simon Squibb brand, because ultimately we'll be funding people's dreams at scale, and people need to trust if we tell them we're going to fund their dreams, it's actually going to happen. So the HelpBank branding is a combination of the Simon Squibb branding and our competitors potentially in the future. We want to make it look serious. It has some element of fun, but ultimately it has its own brand persona. And all you need to do initially to get the brand right is write down all the different brand values. Now, I want to teach you about how companies apply brand at scale. And there's a few different ways it generally plays out. So let's take a brand like Canon. Canon run a brand method which we call reference, right? And reference is when they leverage someone else's brand to make their brand look good. So Canon, for example, worked with a photographer called Peter McKinnon, who is a brilliant photographer. I'm a big fan of his. And by sponsoring him, by supporting him, they don't need that person as a CEO in their company like Apple have done. They have it external. Nike also do this. I mentioned it earlier. Nike will sponsor top performing athletes with nice personalities that have values, and that therefore becomes part of the Nike brand. So they use this reference model to make their own brand look good. Now, Apple, as I mentioned earlier, they use a different method. I call this the leadership method. And the leadership method is basically where you have a person in the company that represents the brand values. Now, in HelpBank, I am that person. Probably in your business, you are, if you're a small business owner, the person that is the leadership value brand ambassador for your company. You're probably the one that asked to go on stage and talk about your business. You're the one in sales meetings, whatever your business model is, you're probably the one representing the brand. Of course, your staff will represent the brand. Your office environment will represent the brand. Like I said earlier, the days when you go out, have a party and post on your social media will represent your brand. But when it comes to making your brand values clear, you do it by these two methods. You either have a reference model, which means you sponsor certain people that represent your brand value, or you have a leadership model, which is you personally in the company leading the charge to make sure people understand your brand. And I think when it comes to brand building, there are some risks in both of these models. Now, in the reference model, if a celebrity that's supporting your brand does something bad, that can affect your brand. Now, this happens a lot, and they often get fired quick. I think one of the most famous cases, Kanye West, who of course got dropped by Adidas, and then lawsuits galore. But what I'm saying is, though, what's good about the reference model is you don't have to spend 4 years building up social media presence like me. I've spent every single day for 4 years doing a post, building up a community. You can just leverage all of that hard work, and your brand can have the halo effect of working with me. But the downside is, what if I do something bad? Then your brand is at risk. So you need to have mechanisms in place to make sure you're protected as a brand. That's how you scale brand. And of course, the leadership model also has its weaknesses. We all saw this a little bit with Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs left Apple, Apple had a real problem for a long time. They put so much of their brand value in the Steve Jobs brand that when he left, the magic left, was often what people said, right? So you have to make sure that you as a leader, it's sustainable for you to be that leader and lead that brand effort, and or there's a good transition model in place. And again, when Steve Jobs went back to Apple, he did have a strong transition model with Tim Cook. Now, Tim Cook's an interesting one because he's not Steve Jobs, of course, but he is Mr. Data. He's someone you trust with your data, right? They've picked him in part because he looks trustworthy. He talks in a very trustworthy and transparent way. And in Apple's process of building a brand, today that is more important to them than a maverick leader telling you about a brilliant product. In fact, the Apple iPhone hasn't changed much since Steve Jobs died. But the point I'm trying to make here is, if you want a brand to be successful, you've got to pick one of these two strategies. Now, you can do both, of course, but you probably double the risk of having some problem in your business. And whichever path you choose, make sure you think it through right to the end. Have the ability to cut that influencer out of your business if anything goes wrong. And equally, if you're running the leadership model, make sure that that leader has a transition plan, because at some point we're all going to die. Now, hopefully we're all going to live forever. With Elon Musk's help, I'm sure that's true. But I will tell you now, the final thing, really important in brand, learn to say no. If you don't say no to the wrong relationships, the wrong brand partnerships, the wrong clients, your brand will get damaged. I have had this experience myself. I spent 10 years building up a brand. It had a fantastic reputation, and then I got a bad client that didn't understand how the world worked and made my brand shit with their big mouth and their lies. And this can be hugely damaging. We all have probably heard the saying, you can spend 30 years building a reputation, it only takes 5 seconds for it to go to shit. I tell you from experience that saying no to things is powerful. If you have an inkling, spider senses that someone isn't good or a brand isn't good or don't match with your morals, do not take their money, say no. Your brand is the most valuable asset you will ever build. My company got sold for a lot of money in the end because I had a good brand image. I had a good brand value. They told me they bought the brand, not the business. Build a brand, not a business, and I promise you that brand will live forever. Next up, how to hire, how to grow, and how to build. These three things are interlinked. And if you get this formula right, your business can take off and forever give you the income you need, be a brand you love, and ultimately not be a management nightmare that a lot of people have when they build a business. So, first of all, how to hire. I always tell people, if your business has a purpose and the people you hire believe in that purpose, you will never have to manage anybody. You will be managing purpose, not people. One of the big things people complain to me about is managing people. And often when I look at their business to see why, because they have not installed a purpose in their business that resonates with the people that they've hired. And sometimes, some businesses later install a purpose, but then that purpose just becomes a slogan on the wall because the people they hired in the early days weren't hired around purpose. You have to have this at the center of it. And when you hire someone, always check, do they genuinely care about that purpose? Some people will play you lip service to get the job. So there is a few hacks that you can do to make sure that person really cares. First of all, go check out their social media. Go see what that person really cares about. You will see it. If they care about the planet, if you see them driving around in some gas-guzzling car, they probably don't care about the environment. So actually doing your research on your hires, being careful about the people you bring into your purpose matters. Check their history. Check for references. I don't know why people don't do this. People don't ask for references anymore. I don't know why. Now, I know in England it's illegal to give someone a bad reference, but if you ask right, I don't want people to have a bad employee in their life if I had that bad employee in mind. It's important that we share these things to help that employee get better. If they had a bad reference, they'd act better, they'd do a better job. Now, ultimately, I think when hiring people, the key is give them equity. Now, I'm going to talk more about equity a little bit later in the video. It always comes up, but if you give your team equity, they are aligned with your success. Now, any owner of any business knows that the real value in a company is not its turnover, it's in its brand. And if over 10 years an employee helps make that brand grow but are only taking an income, they're never getting their true value. You have to own equity in the business that you are working in. Now, there's many different ways to do it. So if you're working for someone today, of course, you can go ask for equity in that company. You've got nothing to lose. They'll probably laugh. They might say no. I promise you they'll respect you more, especially if they're a founder. The second thing is you can build a business where you work with that company, but you own equity in it. So you can start your own company, but have equity in that company and then work for that person. Now, the point I'm telling you here is that give your employees respect. If you want to keep people and you want them to be motivated, have this conversation openly. Talk about this subject. You should be saying they should have equity. Now, it might not be possible to give people equity straight away. It might not be something you feel comfortable with doing straight away. But I promise you, your turnover will be less, your stress will be less, your company will be stronger if that person in your company has equity. And most people don't have the guts to do it. And they then spend years stressing they can't find anyone, or that they can't find anyone that actually cares. It's because they don't own what you own. Give them a piece of the business and you'll have loyalty. Of course, it comes with its risks. But in my opinion, high turnover, high management, high stress is a bigger risk than any equity problem you could have if someone leaves, for example. And ironically, most of the time, why would people leave if they have equity? In fact, I had a case recently, someone who worked with me for 4 years. I gave them equity in the business and then they left. But because I treated them with respect and because I treated them well and we had a good relationship, when they left, they let me buy their equity back at a very low rate. They were very reasonable. They did not hold me blackmail. Now, of course, if you've hired the right person under purpose and you've given them equity, most good people will not hold you over it to get that equity back. You can be reasonable, but if you've done the right thing in the beginning by giving people equity, it's so easy. Now, the third thing I'll tell you, and this really links to how you grow your business. You can't grow a business without people. I would say that today with AI and all this technology, you'll be able to grow a business with less people, but you won't be able to grow a business with no people. So you need to grow a business through growing its culture. You need to make sure that this business has values. I had a business called Fluid. This business went on to become one of the most successful creative agencies in Asia that I sold to PricewaterhouseCoopers for more money than I'll ever need. And one of the things I did in the early days of that business, which was a big mistake, is I built a business to make money. Now that might not sound like a mistake, but what happened? First year, I hired people, they were new, it was exciting. Second year, people started to leave. Why did they leave? Because the values of the business were wrong. I changed the values in that business. We went from a business that was designed to make money to a business that would protect the staff from bad clients. I had a creative agency. Often designers were treated badly. Do this by tomorrow at 12, I need it, instead of understanding that creativity is a process. So we switched our whole model. And instead of working for clients, we worked for the creative people and helped them manage clients. That transformed our business and helped us grow. By thinking about things differently instead of traditionally, you will grow your business. And by looking after your people, it's cheesy, I know, you can grow much easier. Now, when you grow, assuming you follow my advice and you grow your business, this is the important thing you need to identify. What is your destination? What are you actually growing for? Now, I have a lot of people recently approach me and say, please invest in my business, Simon, I want to grow it. My first question is why? What is it you're trying to do by growing your business? What's the real reason you're growing your business? Is it ego? Do you really want to work more? Or is it you want to make the business bigger so you can bring in management so you can not have to work so hard? So you're working hard now to grow it, that's fine. I think you need a reason to grow it. Now, I want to grow the biggest platform in the world that helps people for free learn business. So I want it to be big. I know my destination. I want to help 10 million people for free start a business they love and never feel alone doing it. So I know my destination. And therefore I'm growing both from a higher point of view, from a culture point of view, in that direction. But I have had points in my life, and the early days of Fluid, where actually I wanted to work 3 days a week doing cool stuff with brands and 2 days a week going to the beach with my girlfriend having fun. And so I didn't grow the business too much at the beginning. I actually had a different ambition, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to grow your business, brilliant. Follow this formula. Have purpose, bring people in that have value and own value in the business, and you will grow if you look after them and your customer base. The final thing I'll talk about when it comes to really building a business and making a business successful. First of all, take risk. Make sure that you build MVPs, minimum viable products. Try things out. If you really want to build a company, you can't stay stagnant. No company today is around when they stay stagnant. Think about Blockbusters or any of these businesses that just sat on their technology like Kodak and didn't do anything with it. You can't sit still. Kodak invented the digital camera. You can't sit still. You have to put these things to the market. Kodak didn't want to put their digital camera into the market because it would have meant film was gone, and film was their core business. You've got to disrupt yourself if you really want to build a business that's going to last. If you really want to build a successful company, I'm going to use a dirty word, a word that I personally hate but has saved me. You need to build systems. You need to move from what is often in the early days of a business, what I call a generalist mindset, where everybody can do everything, to a specialist mindset. you need to allow people to be specialists in certain areas. Now, when I was younger, I'm a generalist. I can do kind of everything. I can clean the toilets in the company toilets when they're dirty. I can help people get their car loaded up and get to the site to do the pitch. I can do the pitch. I could do everything. But I became a specialist in marketing. And I think as you grow a business, you have to take away the generalist people and build out specialist people, people that do a particular thing well to help the business grow. And that involves building systems that allow people to do that in your hiring process, in your growing process, and in your mindset. Even you, as a founder, potentially, you have to make sure that you learn a skill set. Otherwise, you become redundant, which, by the way, is fine. I have often got myself replaced in a company that I have built. I think that's actually pretty smart. Unless you can become a specialist, it's probably the best thing for the company too. There's likely to be a CEO out there that's better than you when you're at scale. I have found that to be the case many times. I replaced myself at Fluid 11 years in by someone who was a better CEO than me. So hopefully, if you know your purpose and you give purpose to the people you hire, you have equity both for your team and for the wider growth of the business. You know your values and you apply them. You know your destination and you apply this very important point of systems and removing generalism. You will have a business that is easy to hire people, that will scale and will build into something that lives without you. Now let's talk about how to fire someone. Now I have fired hundreds of people in my career and I'm going to teach you how to fire someone and also when you're likely to be getting fired. So one of the things I hate to do is fire someone. It's a very necessary skill if you want to survive in business. I have often built up large companies that needed to get small again quick for various reasons. You have to learn to fire people. It is not nice. But one of the most difficult things about firing people is understanding when to do it. Now, I think when it comes to actually firing people structurally, like for example, doing it legally, sending the appropriate warnings, doing the proper paperwork, all of this stuff you can get off a lawyer. I'm not going to waste your time telling you the law. In your country, wherever you are, it will be different anyway. I'm going to talk more about the actual act and also what's involved in making the decision as to whether or not someone should be fired. I learned long ago a system that I call the 7 and 8 rule. It's very simple and obvious when I first start explaining it. Now, if someone's in your company and they are really good, like you love them, they love you, they're obviously a 9 and 10, you want to keep them and you want them to stay and they want to stay. Most of the time, those people are 9 and 10s because they're enjoying it. Now, of course, like I said earlier, make sure you give these people equity. Make sure you look after these people over time. But you know you want to keep them and they want to stay. It's a no-brainer, it's cool. Then you have what I call the 1s and 2s. These are people who are shit at their job. They know they're shit at their job. You know they're shit at their job. And most of the time, they either quit or you fire them. It's a no-brainer, everyone feels it. They don't turn up on time, they don't care. They're obviously, they are really good. Like you love them, they are sending the appropriate warnings that needed to get small again quick for various reasons. You have to learn to fire people. It is not nice. But one of the most difficult things about firing people is understanding when to do it. Now, I think when it comes to actually firing people structurally, like for example, doing it legally, sending the appropriate warnings, doing the proper paperwork, all of this stuff you can get off a lawyer. I'm not going to waste your time telling you the law. In your country, wherever you are, it will be different anyway. I'm going to talk more about the actual act and also what's involved in making the decision as to whether or not someone should be fired. I learned long ago a system that I call the 7 and 8 rule. It's very simple and obvious when I first start explaining it. Now, if someone's in your company and they are really good, like you love them, they love you, they're obviously a 9 and 10, you want to keep them and you want them to stay and they want to stay. Most of the time, those people are 9 and 10s because they're enjoying it. Now, of course, like I said earlier, make sure you give these people equity. Make sure you look after these people over time. But you know you want to keep them and they want to stay. It's a no-brainer, it's cool. Then you have what I call the 1s and 2s. These are people who are shit at their job. They know they're shit at their job. You know they're shit at their job, and most of the time they either quit or you fire them. It's a no-brainer, everyone feels it. They don't turn up on time, they don't care about the purpose of the company. Whatever it is, it's obvious that relationship comes to an end naturally. The really difficult thing for any employer, and for that matter, any employee, is if you are a 7 and 8, which means you're almost good enough. You're almost able to do the job. And sometimes, as an employer, you're desperately hoping they become good enough. You're waiting for them to become a 9 and 10. And some days they are, but then they slip back to a 6. Some days they're a 7. And there's various reasons why people are 7 and 8. And often it's not because they're crap at their job. It's because they're in the wrong job with the wrong team doing the wrong thing. I have often seen a 7 and 8 and actually moved them to a different department or a different role, and they become 9s and 10s. But that's not always the case. And sometimes the hardest people to fire are the 7 and 8s. So how do you do it? Well, I think first of all, you put proper structure in place to identify what is success for that employee. You want to understand how they work, what's going on in their lives. Instead of walking into the room and saying you haven't performed, you walk into the room and you say, how can I help you perform? There's things that you can do as a leader to check whether or not that person can get better at their job, and if there's anything you can do to support them. But in the end, learn the 7 and 8 rule. And I have seen this. I have kept 7 and 8s in my companies in the past, and the 9s and 10s leave. If someone can surf, get away with it, and not do their job, and no repercussions, then why would a 9 and 10 stay? Why would a 9 and 10 stay a 9 and 10? If they can get lazy and not work as hard, or cut corners and not get fired, then you're going to have a problem. 9 and 10s will not stay in your business, and you'll have a company full of 7 and 8s. And 7 and 8s are hard to manage, take up nearly all of the conversation, any HR conversation. You have to learn to grow a pair of balls and fire these people. And you know what? When you do, this has happened to me many times, they're grateful. Because those 7 and 8s, if you fire them, can often go on to find a job they like where they are a 9 and 10 and are appreciated. It's your responsibility to fire 7 and 8s. So how can you identify if someone is a 7 and 8? Well, the rule I have is, how many times a day are you talking about them? If they come up too much in any conversation amongst your team members, amongst your customers, more than once or twice in a week, you've probably got a problem. Second thing is, you often are running a system in your brain where you are fearful of not finding a replacement. So you don't want to fire them because they're better than nobody. And I've done this myself many times. A 7 and 8 is at least a pair of hands helping you. When you're building a business, sometimes that's a relief. And the idea of having to find someone new is painful. So you need to get strong. You need to realize and maybe even line up your next hire before you fire. Now, I promise you that employee, and I would be the same, is also looking for another job. So maybe what you can do is help them find that other job. I have done this many times. I've gone to someone who's a 7 and 8 and said, you're not happy, I don't think, you're not completely doing the job the way you should. I've helped you get an interview at this other company. It has actually built relationships with people that weren't happy in the company but are now my friends outside of work. You can help that person, even though it might be frustrating that that person's in your company and not performing. The best thing you can do is work out a solution for them and for you. And you can build a great relationship with that person, even though that it's perhaps not a great relationship in the company right now, by helping them move on. So, following the rule, identify 7 and 8s. Be honest with yourself. Do not have fear that you cannot replace them and find a 9 and 10. You will. Help that 7 and 8 find a new job, and always be honest with 7 and 8 how you're feeling. It will be better for you and for them. And there is a chance, and it's happened a few times in my career, where that person becomes a 9 and 10. And it can often be when you give them equity. Let's talk about how to go global. Now, why is going global one of my main points? It's because a lot of people don't realize that they can go global. A lot of people don't realize that they'll probably remove a lot of the risk in their business if they do go global. Why? Well, if you're in more than one market and the market you're in is in trouble, you spread your risk. I've had this happen to me many times. In my early career with Fluid, we were just in Hong Kong, and it was risky. Hong Kong had a lot of ups and downs. And when we had the downs, I was subject completely to that down. I had no counterbalance with a business potentially in another market doing well. And going global, it turns out, is not difficult anymore. Often, people don't realize there are a few steps to allow your business to go global when you didn't think it was even possible. So what are those steps? First, identify whether there's an opportunity for your product or your service in another market. So research. And even if you don't want to open up that second office or sell that product in that market, once you understand what markets where this could work are, there's a couple of opportunities for you. Now, I could reverse back to raising money. If you're able to say to someone that you could open up your product in other markets with their investment, it can make an investor happy. That's just one example. It can make an investor actually go ahead and invest in you. Equally, like I mentioned earlier as well, if a brand wants to sponsor you to open up another office, this can be a way for you to grow your business and you'll reduce your risk under the dime of a brand partnership. Research is key at this stage. Find out where your product could be sold, even if you don't want to do the work to do it. Second, you can basically set up models like franchising. So if you don't want to set up that business in another market, you can set up a brand franchising arrangement. So someone else will open it up and someone else will do the work, but you can make money by doing nothing. I hate passive income. I don't think that exists, but this is the closest thing to it, in my opinion. Someone else running your brand in another market under a license. So I think that franchising is a real opportunity, and it's a bit of a misunderstood word, franchising, because a lot of people kind of think of like Subway or McDonald's, but franchising can apply to a service business. And many companies are built on partnerships under a franchise structure. The other thing that's really important about going global is making sure your business can stand the test of time. And if you have a business that is thinking globally, ironically, you're more likely to survive in the long term. You'll learn an important lesson, which is it's easier to run a big company than a small company. Far too many entrepreneurs, and me included at points in my career, have made my business too small that I am the only one that can run it. I can't afford senior management. I can't afford to get help. I can't afford to actually stop working for a week. I'm telling you now, by thinking global, you give yourself a chance to grow a big business, and it's easier than having a small business, despite what you've been told by other people. Get a big business if you can. Now, it does link back to what your mission in life is. Maybe you don't want a big business, but do not decide to not have a big business because you think it's easier to have a small business. It's not. Small is not easier. I have run big businesses and I have run small businesses, and I had an easier life once I'd made the business big. So do not trap yourself in any market. Do not subject yourself to any market that could disrupt your business, and make sure you always give yourself the chance to be free of your very own business not trapping you. How to get a mentor. This is the single biggest question I ever get asked, and it's so simple to answer. No one seems to listen to me, but I'm going to try anyway. If you want a mentor in your business, I totally understand why that sounds cool. But the reality is, people have built businesses around this concept that you need a mentor, and they've sold you it as the solution. It isn't. What you actually need is not a mentor. What you need in reality is someone who can answer the questions that you have, and perhaps even give you the answers to questions you didn't know to ask. And this can all be done without a mentor. In fact, I would argue, if you got me as your mentor, it would be pretty annoying, because a mentor will tell you their experience, but it might not be relevant to your life. This video today, in a way, is all the knowledge I have anyway. So of course, you can still have me as your mentor, but what you're really saying, if you're honest about it, is you're looking for a coach. You're looking for someone to keep you accountable. And you can actually break down what that means into what you really need. If you want someone to work with you in your business and keep you accountable, get a co-founder. If you want someone to help you with sales, hire a salesperson. If you know the question you want to ask, then ask it. Now, I say all that, I still want to deliver on a promise to help you get a mentor. And this is how you get a mentor. Number one, you research what matters to that person. Someone reached out to me yesterday asking me to be their mentor for a property development business they want to run. Do you not know who I am? I hate the property industry and everything it stands for. I think property should be a basic human right, and the present buy-to-let system has screwed the world up. I don't want to help someone do that. Now, they were very nice and very polite. I won't name who they are, but I'm telling you right now, do your research before you ask someone for help. A Of course, I'm not going to reply to that. In fact, I did reply saying no, but I'm saying that most people won't reply. You don't want to ask someone to be your mentor and have not done the research on them. The second thing is, don't just say, please be my mentor. Now, there are plenty of people that don't take my view that you don't need a mentor and do want to mentor, and they will mentor you. Some will charge and some won't. I'll get onto that in a minute. But when you ask someone to mentor you, remember, it's a bit like saying, would you like to get married? You need to define what it means. So define what you mean when you say, will you be my mentor? Tell people what that means for you. I would like 10 minutes of your time once a week. And perhaps consider, if you do start defining what it is, what sort of questions you're going to ask. And often, if you ask a question, you will get a mentor. If you ask for a mentor, you'll get no reply at all, because no one can commit to an open-ended question, especially from a stranger asking for mentorship. You need to define it. In an ideal world, I suggest you ask a question first. That's actually why I built helpbank.com. So you can go and write a question to 105,000 potential mentors. Now, if after all this, you're still set on getting a mentor, another way to get a mentor is change the word mentor to advisor. And when you're looking to build a company, for example, or maybe you want a mentor to help you build a company, look for someone that has specific knowledge that you're after and ask them to join your advisory board. Now, advisory boards are a little bit more glamorous for most people. A mentor isn't something you see on many people's LinkedIn profile, but advisor to this company and advisor to that company often is. So reframe it as advisory. Now, if you've got a business with purpose and you followed the other things that I've said in this long video today, you'll know how important things like process and systems and structure and goal will lead you to decide.
I think I'm done for today. I'm pretty tired. I don't really feel like doing anything right now. Sorry. Anyways, see ya. I'll see you next week. Cause I was jogging and stuff. Look at my hair, dude. Isn't your hair good? Pretty cool? Pretty cool? It's not pretty cool? Oh man.